Hey, guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you? My guest today on Alison Answers, the podcast, is Mark St. John. And he is a unique and special guest, and very unique and special to me personally. Mark St. John is a man who has an incredible story of how he lives with and has overcome in different ways post-traumatic stress disorder from a lot of life trauma, from being a person who is out there and as a police officer and as a military person and someone who has different scrapes with life where he has overcome making the decision not to die by suicide, making the decision not to commit violent acts, making the decision to help other human beings. He is a person who behind the scenes makes a difference. And the story that we're going to tell today is about how he reached out as a stranger and made a decision to help me. And in his helping me, he literally saved me and my family's life. His decision to reach out in the middle of the night to someone who did not know where to go, who was in complete despair, and as a stranger, take the risk to say, I understand what you just experienced. Will you let me help you? And what he did was he spent days, and he has continued to be a friend from another country who did not have to help me, who could have just remained anonymous and said, oh, I relate to that. That sucks. But he didn't. He traversed, the land and reached out and shared his own story and spoke for my husband, who himself died by suicide. He spoke the words so that I would understand how someone could get to that point. And he walked me through some of the hardest moments and nights of my life, him and his wife, who was incredibly on the sidelines as a very understanding person, as I cried through our discussions. And I am honored to have him as a guest. And I ask that you take the time to listen to him, a man who continues to daily work through the struggles of his own trauma and always seeing other people who he also can be of help to. And he cares so deeply. Him and I want to partner up to really help first responders, vets, people who had a long history of things, but seemed to be okay. And that was part of my story too, that my husband was a very, very wonderful and together man who had experienced 21 years in the military and different experiences throughout his life that at one point all culminated. And the understanding that something like that can really, really unravel so quickly, I really didn't even know that until I experienced it firsthand. But it's not the person's fault. And it's something that if you understand the mind, the suicide mind, or the mind of someone who is just experiencing even just moments of no hope, what that's like for a person. I have felt it. And unless you've really felt it, it's hard to explain how you could get to a point where you would even consider such a thing. And it is not an issue of the person not loving others. It's not an issue of really anyone else causing it. It's an internal mind struggle that almost feels like something else has taken over for that brief time. So Mark St. John is a man among men. He is my hero, and he is not known all over the world or social media, but he is a person who, in his humble and sweet way, is out there to help others. And I ask that you would share this episode with anyone who has experienced suicide of a family member or someone they love, or someone who struggles with any PTSD, or someone who has had those experiences, who is on the front lines and who is able to manage their emotions and who has the ability to do that. Very often we do not realize that people who are in those situations, people in the military, have learned to split off from their emotional state in order to stay safe, in order to continue to do the work that they're doing. And when they're having a lot of stored emotional, buried alive feelings that they may not even be aware of. It is very important that if you even know anyone who is in any of the rescue or helping fields, firemen, police officers, vets, even if it's been many, many years, or someone who's experienced childhood trauma or, a physical trauma, I ask that you share this with them, because we want to make a difference to family members and to the person who's actually there. And I can tell you that I have watched my mind go into a place where I could have, if I allowed it, I could have gone that far, because I watched my mind have an eclipse go over it, where I could not see any other better option. And I've had several people on this show who have also shared that same feeling. And there was like a moment that pulled them out of it. Mark will also share that kind of a story with you today. So thank you so much for being here. And I honor you listening and taking the time to do that. Also, I just want to throw out there that I do have a book that the proceeds go to the protection and safety and rescuing of sex traffickers of children, to not to rescue the traffickers, to rescue the children of traffickers. And I have a mission that I would like to stop child pornography. So if you would be so kind as to purchase my book, it's there to help people to move through their emotional struggles and to overcome childhood trauma, or the thoughts that we continue to repeat, the lives we continue to repeat, that we don't even realize that we're living in an automated state. And so this book speaks to the young girl with an eating disorder who doesn't see a way out. This book speaks to the person who's in a horrifying relationship and doesn't know how to get out. This book speaks to the person who just continues to think of themselves as less than. It has a workbook in it where you can write it throughout the book. It asks questions. It helps you go through the thoughts that you think the most, the feelings that you feel the most, and the core beliefs that are driving all of that. Because we become addicted to the feelings that we have felt the most. We actually go through a chemical withdrawal when we stop feeling negative feelings. We also have to understand that our thoughts are on a thought loop, and 91% of the thoughts that we thought today are the same thoughts we thought yesterday. And there is a way to transform your thinking. And I give a step-by-step tactical guide with the stories of my life of how to do that, because we develop belief systems that will literally drive the rest of our lives. So I ask that if you would consider purchasing the Wake Up Call. You can get it at thewakeupcall.net. It's a website that I have dedicated to that. And any money, any profit that comes from that book goes to it's called the Underground Railroad. I think I forgot the name of it, but it will be in the notes for today. It's men and women who go and rescue these people who are basically prisoners, sexual prisoners. They're incredible people, and I want to support that cause. So without any further ado, my beautiful, beautiful friend, Mark St. John.
Been a long
Hey, hey,
time
hey,
coming.
guys. How are you today? I introduced my dear friend, Mark St. John. And as I just explained, the reason that Mark is here is because of the type of man that he is and the way that he has utilized his trauma and his struggles in his life, the way that he is humbly able to reach out to me personally to help me through the darkest hours and moments of my life when he didn't have to do it. He didn't know me. He didn't, but he knew me and he knew my late husband because we were him and his wife. So he understood us in a way that probably no one really could. And he made the just the bold and courageous step to reach out to a stranger who was hurting. And he really, really, in so many ways, saved my life because he spoke for my husband to me because he understood what it was like to be in that type of a mind. So, without any further ado, this is my forever friend, Mark St. John. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you. Would you mind just telling the listeners your backstory? You know, it's pretty extensive and it's
Yeah.
painful. It's painful, but you also, I believe, have a mission in regard to that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's obviously been struggles throughout, but I work as a police officer in Canada, and for about 13 years now, I've been off for a few years with PTSD and was diagnosed with PTSD in 2012 and took a period of a few months off and didn't really, because of the stigma surrounding PTSD in the environment, as you know, with military and police and fire and paramedics, not to leave anybody, dispatchers, anybody, nurses, whoever, is affected by these things through all the trauma we see and all the terrible things we see. Um, I didn't. I rushed back to get to work because I didn't want people knowing, and it was supposed to be a big secret. And of course, it's never a secret. So as soon as you go off, it does get out. And unfortunately for me, it ended up being a career limiting or a career ending move to get the help. But I don't regret it at all.
Do you mean that you shared what you were experiencing? Is that what you mean that it got out?
I did. Yeah, I
Mhm.
shared what I was experiencing with the doctor, and the doctor said that it put me off and put me off of work because I wasn't sleeping and I was starting to drink quite a bit actually. And just thinking back, yeah. So I went to the doctor. She said, I have to tell your sergeant, but nobody else will know. And then I came to find out, sure enough, the first coffee that he went for with all the rest of them, boom, it was exposed every day that I was off. And then I was
Yeah.
experiencing PTSD symptoms and so on and so forth. Even though it's a big force, it's like one of the biggest police forces in Canada. The word travels so fast through, it's like rumor mills. It's like a high school there or something kind of thing. And of course, then everybody knows. And I
Didn't
was
they
embarrassed,
respect
to be
it?
honest.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
embarrassed.
Yeah.
Um, some respected it. There
Hmm.
was definitely some. I think the culture is definitely it's changing, but there's still a lot of the old boys club mentality where suck it up, and
Yes.
so because now what I think is that it takes, and I have had a good friend through the police department that's been there. He's part of our peer support team, and we became very close. And you know, I think from his help and just seeing over the years, I've realized that coming forward, no matter what it does to your career, is actually a sign of great strength, not weakness. But I felt like in the beginning, why is this happening to me? I'm I never thought it would happen to me because I was stronger than that. I was I just
Yes.
was that guy. I
Yes.
always thought I went to the gym, and I was like, just because you think your muscles are physically strong. And it took me the longest time to realize just because these things got you, it doesn't make you weak. But you're like, how come other people have experienced bad stuff and it didn't get them yet?
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
you come to realize it's affecting probably all of them in different ways, and some of them are not going to come forward because it's just
Yes.
too hard.
I have like thoughts about this that I just wanted to ask you
Yeah,
about, because
absolutely.
this is how I'm thinking about it, is that PTSD, and I'm going to ask you to share what the symptoms are in a minute, but the whole concept of PTSD and people who are in the military, police officers, first responders, fire, all of those people, a lot of them are trained, especially the military. I think the police too. You can correct anything I'm saying, but I feel like in order to survive those environments, you have to split off from your emotions in order to
Totally.
be able to show up, fight in the street, whatever you have to do to protect people, to be in very bad situations. So you
You
have
do.
that experience happening. Then at the same time, then you have to bury that stuff. Then you have to go live a normal, softer life, maybe with your family.
Yeah.
And then there's this
Attempts
kind of
attempt to live a normal softer life.
attempt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not possible to be switching back and forth, right? So then what I think about, then you have this group of, group think, where anybody who sees your perceived weakness or the vulnerability, the pain, is going to feel threatened, because then what is it? I have to hold my pain back. So it's like
Yeah.
this emotion, like buried alive emotion, that eventually, no matter what, you push a ball under the water long enough, it's coming up.
Mhm.
So now my question, with all of that in mind, so I'm thinking like, this is like a larger issue, like we've discussed, like, how
Absolutely.
do we help people in this situation be able to freely have a conversation about what just happened, without being afraid that they're weak, but also being
Yeah.
able to go out there and kick ass, like fight
Yeah.
in the street like a wild man, but still be able, because I think that's strength, to be able to talk about how
Yeah.
much it sucked.
Yeah.
So now, and I'm going to say one other thing, then I'm going to let you just go. So this
No.
other thing is, like, I was just asked to speak in Washington, D.C. in like June, this mental health, um, like American mental health thing. So
Yeah.
basically, they want to talk about the trends in mental health. And I feel like mental health has been in this long-term experience, like when people were younger years ago, children should be seen and not heard. So it's
Yeah.
like that kind of mentality is how mental health has been also. It's a secret, all the whatever.
The stigma,
So
yeah, it's
how,
generational for sure.
yes. So then so I'm asking you this: how we want to help people who are actively protecting us, protecting our country, our communities, all of that. Like, I think you and I are on the same page. You are a voice. And I think your struggle with being a voice is that you say shit that they don't want to hear. Honestly, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that true? So
Yeah.
now
Absolutely.
you said shit that I needed to hear because I was in the dark place. But
Yeah.
what about
Absolutely.
people who are not yet there? So now my question, let me just say, how would you describe post-traumatic stress disorder? How, like, just in your raw, like, explanation. And then how did you end up in a place where you had a gun in your mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like to describe PTSD where I was, at first, obviously, I didn't have any idea what was happening to me.
Yep.
I just, like, I thought I was cracking up a little bit.
Yes.
I had seen and been to, some nights you're going to, there's night I can specifically remember, all I did all night was go to dead people. So 5, 6 suicides. Actually, there was 4 suicides, a homicide, and a lady who died on the toilet. She was like 80 something years old. And we found her there. But that's a whole night of
Yeah.
literally just death. And, you know, weird things like when we went into these places, though, obviously there's a smell of when you die, it smells bad. So we were my partner and I were took all of our clothes off at the end of the night because we were like, geez, it stinks. Like so the next day we came back and we had thrown our uniforms in the garbage. And there's a big bucket where you can throw your uniforms and they'll take them, get rid of them for you. So we had thrown those uniforms in the garbage and we got in the truck, the van the next day and we're driving around. And I was like, geez, Ryan, like, did you, I thought you threw your uniform out because I could smell a dead person. And he's like, yeah, it's like maybe it's on our jackets or whatever.
Yeah.
So we took our jackets and we put them in the back where we couldn't
Yeah.
smell them, but we couldn't shake the smell of dead person. And but it wasn't anywhere. It was in our nose. You know what I mean? These are the
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
strange things that happen. Sorry to get sidetracked there, but just this story of like what we
No,
go
that's
through and see.
real. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me is I went to a child in a hot tub, and anyways, we tried to save the child and couldn't, and I spent the night in the hospital with the. It was just a toddler, 16-month-old little boy, and I left. I stayed my whole shift. I would get off at 3:30 in the morning. I left the children's hospital, and I went home. Ended up sitting in my chair. I was single at the time and drank a couple bottles of wine. I think three or four, and woke up in the chair the next day and had to go to work again. So went back to work, and that set of shifts. I even had a ride along that night actually, and I went to a big fire. I ended up working overtime till 11 or 12. That was my last night shift. And then our last overnight, and then I came to a set of 4 days off, and I was a couple days into that when I woke up in the middle of the night, just absolutely drenched, soaked, like my whole upper body, and the sheets were soaked, sweat was beading off down my arms, and heart was racing, and woke up from like a dead sleep, and I thought I was dying. I thought, oh, I must be having a heart attack, and I was so wet. I remember feeling my sheets, and literally, I was like, "Geez, did I pee the bed?" Like I
Yeah.
literally thought,
Yeah.
"Where did all this water come?" So,
Yeah.
but I checked so I just was patting myself, and I was like, "Geez, I'm only sweating from the waist up." Like
Yes.
literally, it was like a line,
Yeah.
and so I was like, "Okay, it's not that." And then I was able to talk to myself and be like, "Okay, I'm not having any chest pains. I'm not having any arm pains, and there's nothing else going on here except I'm like feel like I'm running a marathon with
Yeah.
my breath." And so I was able to slow it down and get a shower and calm myself down. But that was kind of the first indication to me that I was like, something's not right. And then I started drinking more, and I was not a huge drinker, but I started drinking more because I noticed when I drank, I didn't feel those feelings anymore,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that became kind of it just spiraling for probably 6 8 months that
Yeah.
I kept doing that, kind of self medicating, I guess, as people would say.
Did you connect it to the trauma, or you just didn't know what was wrong?
I didn't really know what the heck was going on. The little guy had
Mhm.
passed away. I found on my next shift back, and it really bothered me. And
You had
like
told
I
me
can,
more about that story that was really,
yeah,
really
yeah,
traumatizing, actually, you know?
horrible. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, right now I can see him with all the tubes in him and machines
Mm.
breathing for him. And I sat there all night and talked to the poor little guy, but he did pass the next day, so it was a tough one. And with all the other things, I guess
Yes.
it's not necessarily sometimes the one. That one was just the one where everything kind
Yes.
of erupted.
Yeah.
So I went off for the 4 months, like I had said, and then I went back to work and just continued to keep going and pushing through and suck it up, so you might
Yeah.
say, right? And I came to the end, and before I'd went off, and I was struggling to get out of bed and function, and now another couple of years, well, 4 years probably had gone by. That was 2012. 16, yeah, so another 4 years of going through all this stuff and seeing more and responding to stuff, and it, it's like you said, you become a different person. So when I would go to work, I would be hardened and cold, and you have to do it. So when I
Yes.
got to work, work was work, and you
Yes.
would be cold, and you would even finish your shift before you'd really have any emotion, and then you could try to go home and forget about it, but
Right.
some of those things you can't forget about. And so I went for 4 more years, and then I just said, I can't. I was just hating my life. I was hating my job. I dreaded every morning I had to get out of bed. Some
Yes.
days I couldn't because I couldn't breathe. So I continued just to keep working, of course, because I didn't want
Yeah.
to go back to the stigma,
Yeah.
which is the problem. So a lot of us suffer in silence, and
Yes.
that's the worst possible thing you could do.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it. I did it as long, as same with most. And finally, I said, this is, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna go crazy. Like
Yeah. Did you feel like you were
between,
going crazy?
I did. My mind, it would spin and spin and spin, and
What would it be
I,
doing, that mind? What would be happening inside your mind?
you know, some days it would go from like just sheer anger to sadness, and back and forth, and blaming others, and
Yeah.
why did this happen to me,
Yeah.
and as fast as I could say these things, that's what your mind's doing, and it's literally swirling and swirling, and you can't slow it down.
Yeah.
So the simplest tasks become mountains to try to accomplish.
Yes.
And my fitness suffered. I couldn't get into the gym, and then when I go to the gym and walk, I would have a panic attack. I couldn't run no more.
Yeah.
I I found like 3 or 4 people dead mowing their lawn,
Mm-hmm.
and to this day, I pay somebody to mow my lawn. I don't
Yes.
like mowing my lawn, and
Yes.
because as soon as I turn that lawnmower on and I start walking, I can hear my heartbeat in my ears,
Yes.
and my mind is telling me you're going to die if you keep mowing this lawn,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
know that's not the case, right? But
Yes.
I can't convince myself. I've managed to find little ways where I wanted to work through it. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
put music on, and put my headphones in to mow the lawn so that I could stop hearing the heartbeat. And you
Yes.
find ways around stuff, but you don't necessarily. Sometimes you're not dealing with the issue. You're
Yeah.
just trying to find band aids, and
Mm-hmm. I'll
it was
say,
super
Mark,
challenging.
yeah, just to piggyback on that, what you're saying right there, your description, when you say that you found people dead mowing their lawn, what it's so important, I think, people to understand, because when you're saying like you felt it like you were crazy, but you didn't understand like the
No,
reason. And that I know my husband told me, he said, I feel like I'm losing my mind and
losing
I
my
don't know
mind.
what to
Yeah,
do. And I'm so afraid. He was like, I am so afraid, but I
terrified.
don't know what it is. So
Yeah,
then, we would really talk a lot. We were very good friends. So the thing that stands out to me is that when you describe, when you find that dead body, immediately what happens in that moment is our brain immediately couples things together. So what fires together wires together. So death
yeah,
and the lawnmower were wired together for you, right?
yeah,
So many things. A 16-month-old boy, you could be wired together with trauma in your mind. It doesn't have to be that. It could be the hot tub. It could be whatever. So if you have when you get to a point in your life and you have a 16-month-old, they want to swim or
yeah.
whatever, these
Panic.
are all things that are just,
Oh,
and the more and
yeah,
more triggers, whatever's attached to the trauma becomes also a trauma, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It
So,
it's similar, like you say, the smell, and then after a while, we would use like Vicks vapor rub in your nose to so
oh,
we didn't have to smell the smell. But then for me, now Vicks vapor rub is
oh,
attached
I
to the
got it.
death. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I
Yes.
replaced Vicks vapor rubs. I mean, I don't mean to laugh. Sometimes I laugh. I think
No, I understand that.
to deflect how it feels. But
Hmm.
Vicks vapor rub obviously smells better than a
And
person
death,
who's
of
passed away.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
These things that we're talking about, it may not seem like a lot to you or me, but somebody who's out there listening who feels crazy, someone who's
yeah,
out there listening whose, spouse or friend is living day-to-day experiences like you had, and then is just acting normally, we don't notice that. In my
no,
situation, my husband was so normal. He never seemed like he was scared of anything. He was funny. He was good natured. I'd be like, don't you have like any PTSD? He'd be like, I don't know, like, not really, whatever. And then just, it just overtook him such a long, long time later that it was so confusing, you know? So,
There was times to myself I said, like, similar, just reminding me of, like, what he
yeah,
had said. I don't know. There's, some things that I would think, "Geez, that should really bother me," and it doesn't. And then
yeah,
others that I'm, like, not sure why. There was times I even literally doubted having it, even though I'd been diagnosed with it, and
yeah,
I'd go in and I saw 2 different doctors, and, I was like, sometimes I'm, like, not sure, and I'm like, I feel like, do I really have it, or am I should I just be sucking this up? Like, why can't I get past this? Like, I should
mhm,
just suck it up, move on, and I try to tell myself that, and of course, my doctors are like, "Well, you've got pretty severe PTSD. Like, we
yeah,
believe that you have it." Like, and I was like, sometimes I feel like, yeah, just like maybe I don't have it.
yeah,
Maybe I just am just being a little bitch, for lack of a better terms, and I can't suck it up. And there was a period of time where I felt that way. So 2016, I went back off work, and 2017 is where things went dark for me. Um, Drinking pretty heavy, just detached from everything.
yeah,
I used to, I really loved working out, and getting into the gym was a struggle. I loved playing golf in the summer. I didn't even want to go anymore. All the things that I found enjoyment in, I was losing enjoyment in that.
yeah,
Really detached from my wife, um, and I finally, yeah, I was going to kill myself, and I had had enough. And I think, like, from all the stories I heard and people I know, um, like we said, your mind is the biggest. It just won't stop. It
yeah,
just spins and spins and spins. And even when you're sitting in a chair trying to watch a movie with your wife, you're not there. And
yeah,
things like, I couldn't go. I went to the store before, and I went to come home, and I didn't know where I was anymore,
yes,
and that's terrifying.
yes,
Um, I knew where I was. I could picture where my house is, but I couldn't connect the dots, and I had to use the
yes,
GPS to find my house.
yes,
So terrifying. I thought,
yes,
oh, this is must be the end. My brain is done, and
yes,
that happened to me on several occasions. So 2017, I decided that I was going to kill myself, and I had decided for a couple weeks that it was coming, and I would. I think
Did you
I've
feel
said this
relief?
to you, but
Did you feel
I
relief?
that's where I was going. It
Yeah,
literally, I think I might have said this to you before, but it was the most peaceful 2 weeks I've ever had since this whole thing began,
yeah,
and it just knowing it was over. And while I was doing the things with my wife, and I was trying to see people, because I knew in my head that that was be probably the last time I saw them. So I was kind of going around and doing my farewell tour, I guess, for lack of a better term, and saying goodbye to everybody without them knowing I was saying goodbye. And all this time, again, I never spoke a word to anybody, because the last thing I wanted was somebody to stop me. And I was in my room, and I looked down. I had the gun. I was ready to go, and I was going to shoot myself in the head, in my mouth, gun in my mouth. And I just looked at the clock, and it said 2:38, and I thought, whoa, my daughter's off school at 3, and then my wife, it wasn't my wife at the time, but she she was going to come home, and I thought, one of these, for some reason, that clock is what stopped me,
yes,
and it just gave me enough time to think, one of these two is going to find me, and this is why I'm where I am. I would be leaving them with the same kind of trauma and stuff that I had, and I just couldn't bear the thought of leaving that way. So I decided that I was going to do it somewhere else. Just drive
yeah,
outside the city, or in a wooded
yeah,
area, and that I would do it there where they would wouldn't have to find me. And the next day or 2 days later, I think it was the next day, to be honest. Um, I was out with my wife for, we went to get some food down the road at a restaurant. And while I was there, I got a phone call that said my best friend had killed himself. And again, that he probably is the reason that I'm still here. One of the reasons. My wife is another one. But I decided I would wait and go to his funeral and do all of these things. And it was quite a, just a, it was like watching your own funeral. So I
Yeah.
was watching his wife and his son, and it was pretty, yeah, just a crazy feeling to be there and just to watch it. And after all that, watching what they went through, even though I felt like everybody would be better off without me, I realized through his funeral and watching, because that's what he even said in his note, that everybody would be better off without him. And it's easy to feel that way because I felt that way because we feel like such a burden. And I'm
Yes.
sure, CJ felt the same way because you
Yeah.
feel like you're just spiraling. And then, you know, um, all of us who who do the job, do the military, do the police, do fire, and all so on and so forth. Um, people say, "Oh, they're the heroes and stuff like that." And I know I said this to you before, but our spouses, don't get enough credit, and they truly are heroes for helping, us along the way and trying to get us, keeping us alive a lot of times, right? And my wife, she does some things. She can see when I'm lost. I leave the house to go to the mall and I don't know where we're going anymore. And she'll do simple things like, so when we get to the mall, hon, I would like to go to this store first. And because she can see me spinning and I'm like, I don't know where to go. So it gets really frustrating. And
Yes.
you leave the house and within 2, 3 minutes, you don't know why you left the house anymore.
Yes. Yes.
So those things still actually happen to me, unfortunately, but
Yes.
I'm getting better at dealing with it, and she's getting better at seeing it. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
you were the same. You could see something coming because you're just there every day, day in and day out. And you can see when the wheels are spinning and when they're when the
Yeah.
wheels are always spinning for somebody like us, unfortunately. But
You know what's interesting about that, Mark? Like, I it was such a sudden, like a really quick onset with him that he
yeah,
deteriorated so quickly that it was like spinning. It was hard to figure out. And we were reading about PTSD together. He was like, "This is definitely it. This is definitely what it is. I feel it. I don't know why." And but one of the things I did notice, and when you're saying it now as a separate person, a therapist, I know that when someone is in terror, when someone is in high stress mode, basically, that's like the brain wave is like high beta. What happens to our brain is that the top of our brain disconnects basically from the bottom. And it's like,
yeah,
so that's why the only thing that the person can do is survive. So they're in complete
yeah,
survival mode. So if you have PTSD and you go into that neurologically, what happens is all you have to do is fight or flight, run, hide, not find your way to the mall because you're going
no,
to die.
exactly,
You're going to
yeah,
die. So your whole body is in a survival mode. So you're not going to know where you are.
no,
So I noticed with CJ, he would be like, not remember things all of a sudden. I would tell
yeah,
him something and he would immediately forget it. And this was just like only a month before he died, or maybe it was two.
hmm,
So I was just like, do you remember what I said? He's like, and then he would pretend he remembered, but I knew he
yeah. I've
didn't.
done that. I've done
Were
that
you
too,
doing that?
and I have zero. I still do
Yeah.
because sometimes I do get embarrassed. Sometimes I'm like, oh, and my in my mind I'm like, why the hell can't you remember something so
Yeah.
simple like uh a date for a doctor's appointment? Like I have to write
Yes.
them all on a planner and stuff because there's no way. And my doctors even send me a text message the day before and the
Yeah.
morning of because they
Yeah.
know there's some days. Some I was thinking this morning, when and I was like, how is a way to describe a day for me. Obviously, I don't work anymore. A good day for me is when I could get to the gym, I like to walk in the summer. Calgary is like seriously freezing cold a lot in the winter, so I
Yeah.
don't like to walk outside, but I have a treadmill. I like to
Mhm.
go to the gym. So if a winning day for me would be to get a workout in and to leave my house. I don't like to leave my house. You know, I still sometimes feel like people are following me, or I
Yes.
have those weird
Yes.
things. And when
So
I
you feel
leave
like
the
you're in
house,
danger, right? Is that what it is? It feels like you're in.
hypervigilance like
Yes.
crazy,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
everywhere I go, if I was to go to a movie with my wife, I look at the exits, I look at where we could get to the fastest, where could I hide her while I
Yes.
try to defend,
Yeah.
or, so
Mhm.
simple things like going to a movie becomes all of a sudden this crazy plan where you
Yes.
think that somebody's going to try to kill you.
Yes.
And,
Mhm.
and I guess until you have people trying to kill you all the time, I guess you don't think about it, but
Right.
it's, yeah, it's challenging. And just to go out sometimes causes great anxiety. We were going on Christmas Eve. Had to go to a grocery store, and like I'm far from, I guess, I don't know if I would say a success story, but I managed to live. I survived, so I got through that. But I struggle daily, and so a day in my life is like some days I win, some days PTSD wins. Uh,
Yeah.
it does happen, but if I can make it so that I win more days than it does in a week, I feel like it was a good week, right?
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
but literally going to the grocery store, I started sweating, shaking, and
Mhm.
she was holding my hand, and she's like, "It's okay, stop shaking. Like, what's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know." I just all
Yes.
of a sudden felt this,
Mhm.
like something bad was going to happen.
Yes.
So she said, "No, you don't have to come in with me. Like, just stay in the car."
Mhm.
And I was like, I wanted to go in,
Yeah.
and then in my head I was thinking, because if something bad happens, I have to be there to make sure that I
Yeah.
can look after her and look
Yes.
after.
100%, right? Because 'Cause you're a
But
protector. Mhm.
yeah, so I literally was like, "Oh, no, I gotta go," and I forced myself to go in, and it the first probably 10 or 15 minutes in there was horrible. I felt like I
Yes.
was gonna die, but I managed to breathe and just try to look around, and, I did the same thing, look for threats. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. You go to the grocery store
Yeah.
and you're but I think, like, yeah, it's hard to, like we said earlier, it's hard to separate. I'm in danger at work too, and I haven't worked in close to 5 years now,
Yeah.
and it, it just doesn't go away.
Mark.
The feeling that something's creeping up behind you, those kind of weird spidey senses stuff, right?
Yes. This is the thing, like, I feel like you having a voice and saying this to people, right, out here and saying it, you're saying the thing that is in complete opposition to what, people who are out there protecting other people are taught. They're taught that that's, like what you're saying, weak or whatever it is.
Weak.
But
It's weak, yeah.
yeah, think about it though. When what my friend Kayla, she's a woman who lost her husband to suicide. He died by
Mm,
suicide, but she wrote a book called Fear Gone Wild, and she talks about the suicide mind, that it actually doesn't even feel like it's the person. It's something that's literally taken over, and it's like this experience where, so it's like you don't have say so over those moments. But one of the
no.
things I feel like can help people with PTSD is that, it may sound silly, but neuroscience is really super helpful, because when somebody's like a tough guy like you, honestly, who is a
I don't
protector.
feel like it so much, but yeah.
Yeah. But if you understand the basics, it's not about weakness. It's about, you have a little, like we have something called the amygdala, right? And
Mhm.
that part of our brain is the fire alarm. So it's like, I feel like police officers or anybody in that situation could understand that that is there for a person like you. So, wow, there is extreme danger right now. Prepare, fight or flight or freeze, whatever it is. So that has to happen in the body. But so now the body, the amygdala sees the supermarket, right? It
Yeah.
sends off the alarm because it believes that you're in danger. Now, if you stayed in the car, the amygdala would be like, oh, yeah, see, I'm right. dangerous. He
Yeah.
didn't go.
He
But
didn't go.
he didn't go. But now you're actually retraining your brain. When you go into that supermarket and you override an alarm that literally is telling you somebody's going to die, which is terrorizing, right? But this is one of the things that really helps people to get better, even if they do it in small increments, because the amygdala now is being trained that, oh, this particular situation is not dangerous because nothing happened.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
run, he didn't fight. If you went in the supermarket and fought, or if you ran, it would be like, yeah, good, I did my job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you went and you didn't do any of those things, which I know you didn't,
No.
that actually is what you're describing, a win. But that right there, leaving the
Yeah.
house almost like as an action to get better, is something that actually can help someone. And I feel like this whole setup that we have for the police, like for anyone, military, they have to be trained to not be scared, right? Or to not
I
have a
was just going to
reaction.
say what you were saying about the fight or flight, and for us, I think I never had much of a flight even growing up. It wasn't a part of me that so much, but you become trained that flight is not really one of the options. So,
Yes.
and I mean, it's a saying that you hear in movies, you hear people say that are involved in, like you're running into a situation where everybody's running out, whether it's a burning building for firefighters or somebody shooting in a building, and you're running in while everybody's running out. So, running away is not necessarily an option. And then I think in life, your flight kind of gets broken or damaged because you
Yes.
don't know how to do it anymore,
Yes.
because you're always on, you're always
Mhm.
in engage or fight mode, and
Yes.
it becomes to a point where you don't know how to retreat necessarily.
Yes, that's so
Yeah,
important because sometimes that is a better thing to do, but in your case, it's
absolutely.
not,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But,
yeah.
or maybe, who knows, maybe it is. But you know what I wonder? Like, whoever, if somebody's listening who even has somebody who doesn't seem like they have PTSD, who seems fine and normal, because honestly, my husband seemed fine and normal like forever. So
When I was
there's
at my
that
worst,
case.
I probably appeared very normal to people when I was at my
Yeah.
worst because I was holding it all in.
Yeah. Interesting, right? And then
Yeah.
you have, so now if somebody's listening who actually is struggling and doesn't know what to do, like, what would you say to them? Because you and I want to do something. We want, like, to me, I'm
Good.
all about let's change the way that we handle this. Because to me, the real strength for these badasses, these guys who are running into burning buildings, all of you guys, the real strength is being able to, whatever, see a dead body, physically,
Yeah.
like, fight for your life, and then be able to go and talk to somebody about how scared you just were, but you kicked ass.
Yeah.
Because really, if you think about, if you're really kicking someone's ass or you're fighting for your life or someone else's life, if now I'm acting like an expert, I've never had to do that. So just don't make fun of me. But this is
No.
what I actually think.
Yeah.
I believe this just as a therapist. I believe that rage or anything like that, one of the biggest driving forces is fear. I'm going to kill you so
Absolutely.
you don't kill me. So
Yeah.
basically, I'm going to fight through. That's fear. Am I
Yeah.
wrong?
No. No. 100%.
Yeah.
Comes down to me or you, or and
And fear could make you a violent guy right now. I don't mean you, but
can
like,
yeah. No, anybody. It can make you because
yes.
you feel like you're fighting for your life all the time, and it I think if I could say something like to anybody who's struggling or is holding it all in. I just lost a friend Sunday night,
Oh
a
my,
firefighter who killed himself. We were very close, and I knew he was having a hard time, but again, I didn't know he was there. So holding it in, I knew he was having a hard time. He would talk about it a bit. And this is a guy, tough guy, a guy who was a kick-ass guy in the fire department, very good firefighter, and his life started to fall apart, and now he's gone. And I wish, we had talked more. He leaves you not knowing, if you could have done more.
yes.
Um, but I think the biggest thing I would say, is getting help, is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Yes. Yes.
And people will not get the help because they do believe like, oh, it'll cut my career off, it'll limit me, I won't get promoted. And but in the big picture, like, if you're not here, you're not going to get promoted either. So
Exactly.
it, it's not going to it's not just going to go away, is I
Right.
think a thing that I thought for a long time.
Mhm.
um and you might be able to comment on this, but I a good chunk of any of the doctors I've seen, and I did see a few, because not all doctors are the right fit for every person.
Right.
So it took me a while to find the ones that are good with me and work with me, and that I found some relief and I found some progress out of. So a lot of my things are and why it becomes kind of deep rooted and harder to treat for somebody like yourself, is because all I did was hold it in for years, and then to try to dig it back out, it's harder. So if you get help, um, on the baby that passed away in the hot tub, you get help immediately and
Yes.
deal with the emotions and the sadness and the fear and the anger from the one call. Well, when you hit the next one, it's not going to pile on top and
Yes.
pile on top until there's so many files in that folder that the drawer explodes. And
Yes.
I didn't do that. So I think, if I could reach one person who is
Yes.
feeling that way and
Yes.
tell them please do the strong thing
Yes.
and get some help early so that it can get better, and
Yes.
you'll have a lot smoother path, I think, if you treat it on a call by call basis
Mhm.
rather than stack up 100 calls on top of yourself and you feel like you're under cement or sinking in quicksand, and it's you can't catch your
Yes.
breath because
Yes.
they're all piling up on top of you. And I think it's important to treat them call by call, would be
Yeah.
my, and you can comment on that, I'm sure, because that's what you do.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's really anything, if you think about it, Mark, it's changing just our perspective on things, because men and women have learned to think a certain way about it, that what we believe, all of us, about emotion, it feels like the longer we bury emotion, the more primitive it gets. So it feels like, if I ever share this story, or if I ever share my anger, I'll kill someone. If I ever share my pain, I'll never stop crying. Or if I
Yeah.
if I talk about how scared I am, I'll be even more scared. And
Mhm.
it's actually a complete myth, because just the feeling feels more primitive when it's underneath. So the thing about it is that, if I swear I would love to go to every single police department. I would love to speak to the military or whatever, just to say, like,
Yeah.
trust me on this one. The strength you will gain it's like literally going to the bathroom or blowing your nose. Like,
Yeah.
like, you're not going to hold in going to the bathroom, Mark. You're
No.
going to go. If you just keep holding it, no, I'm embarrassed, it's weak. Or I'm not
Yeah.
going to blow my nose. Like,
Yeah.
basically, emotions are supposed to be flowing through and out of us. And then, okay, next. How are you
Yeah.
supposed to manage a trauma if you just make it like it didn't happen? So it's like, I feel like it's almost like I want to go to every police department and shake all of their shoulders.
Yeah. Wake
Like,
up.
guys, listen, trust
True,
me on
but
this.
the mentality and the I don't know if the mentality is the right word, but the general consensus in those places is that you get the macho testosterone type of, and you know what, and there's, I think, a lot of police, especially some fire departments, um, I do think that what will help the switch is there more and more women are coming in, and
Oh, interesting.
ego. I believe that women are better at this, um, because they don't have
Because we
the
are.
male ego. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
But they don't have the testosterone and the male ego that,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Because women
Yes.
are are just better at it. And I
Mhm.
believe that they're going to be a huge part in the switch uh, and the turning of the tides to help people think it is okay and it's not weakness, it's strength. And I do believe that that is going to be part of the switch. Over the it's going to take a long time. We may not see it in our lives, but
Don't you bite your
because it's
tongue,
generational.
bite your tongue. We're
I
doing
hope we do.
something. We're
We're going to
tearing
do
this
something
shit
about it.
down.
Yeah,
I'm tearing this
exactly.
shit down with you, Mark. I'm
Absolutely.
telling you.
No, I'm
So
in for
let
that fight for sure.
Yes. So listen,
But yeah,
I actually want to ask, tell me that you'll do, I know you're going to say yes. I just know it. So what I want to ask is, do you think we could do a part 2 of this?
absolutely.
Can we just
Absolutely.
because I would like to, because I don't feel like we're done and I know
Yep.
that our time is up. So I feel like
Yeah.
I want to talk more about basically one of the things that I just want to say before we end that I don't think people actually know, but the actual experience that I had with Mark was that my husband died by suicide. So I haven't really actually explained this in detail. So basically, he died by suicide. Mark and I are in the same business group, Arate. We don't know one another. We live in different countries. We hadn't known one another. There's a lot of people in there, but he found out about what happened and he got in touch with me. And it was late. It was like, I think it might have
Yeah.
even been like the next day. I'm pretty sure it was the day after.
Mhm.
And he literally explained to me from his own perspective what his mind was like during the moments when he wanted to die by suicide. He explained to me the thinking and the experience inside, and that it wasn't actually my husband, but it was this takeover kind of this mind that
Absolutely.
he just needed to stop, just end the takeover basically of the mind. And
Yeah.
he just kept telling me, because when someone dies that you love so much by choice, it isn't even their choice at that point. I don't even think that he had a
It's
choice,
no,
because
I don't think.
yeah. And I've
Just
had a
needed to
recent,
stop.
yeah,
He
needed it
needed
to
to
stop.
stop.
That's
Yeah.
what you told me. And I just needed you to keep telling me that, because all I could think was, what, because when that happens, all you can think of is all the things you could have done. How could I have stopped this? How did I miss that this was actually a real thing that could have happened? I could never even imagine that my husband would have done that, even though he was having a
Yeah.
hard time and we were talking about it. Never did I ever think, because he was so strong and he would say, I would never do that. Like, we even talked, he was
Yeah.
like, I would never do that. So I felt very secure in that. But the thing is that I think that he actually wasn't there in those last couple of minutes. I think
No,
that
I agree.
whatever, it was not him. It just wasn't him. So
Yep.
but my point about what happened with you is that your willingness to talk about those dark moments of yourself in your own mind are the thing that helped me, and has helped me to understand what that kind of mind is doing. And if anyone else can hear that and they find themselves in those moments, then they will remember, hopefully, that it's fleeting, those moments. And I'm just going to share, this is so vulnerable, you're not even going to believe I'm actually saying this, but I can't believe I'm saying it. You bring it out in me, Mark. But literally, I am not kidding you. It could have been, I'm trying to think, it was a very short time, maybe it was days or a week, so I don't even remember. I started thinking in line with, like, I'd be better off not here. I mean,
Yeah.
I could cry thinking about it, because I started to have that plague going through my thinking, and it was taking over. I could feel it. And it
Yeah.
actually felt good to think about that there was an option. And I literally, now I don't know
Yeah.
why God allowed that or why that happened, but I think it gave me a glimpse into a suicide
Absolutely.
mind. I've felt it
Yeah.
a couple of different times in my life. I knew I had to switch quickly. But that eclipse of the mind, I could see how easily it could happen. And by having
Yeah.
it happen in my own mind and feel that feeling, like, it was horrible, but it was good because it helped me to understand it more. And it also helps me understand that sense of relief that can come over you. But
Yeah.
basically, what you're doing when you do that is you take everything that you're trying to never feel or think or experience again, and you're just loading it into the people you love's lap. You're just leaving it at their feet because it's so much easier just to, I
I think
remember
at the
thinking,
time when I saw your message, I just thought, oh my goodness, like obviously I was there where he was, and I could just through the message, I felt like I could feel your pain, and just wanted to reach out, and I thought, like I knew what you did because I had seen past messages in the group. I knew that you treated people, and I thought, oh my goodness, like, and I'm sure we talked about it, but I felt helpless when I lost friends and felt like,
yeah,
my goodness, I wish I could have done more. And of course, you're in that field. So I thought, my gosh, like she's probably experiencing this and more, thinking like, this is what I do. How
yeah,
could I not, see it? And, but, but I mean, that's not on you. Of course, like I've told you
yeah,
lots of times, there's nothing you could have done once you got to that point because even though I didn't, there was nothing that was going to stop me.
yeah, hmm yeah,
There was just nothing, and nobody knew.
yeah. It's so weird
It's just
being
not
in
you.
that field. Like what you said is, it's really true. It's
Yeah,
so weird. Like this is what we do every day. Like we see it.
absolutely.
But when you're
Yeah,
so close to someone and you just, that actually makes it harder to see. People think
yeah.
it's easier to see.
No,
It's
absolutely
it's
not.
harder to see because
Yeah,
you're not
you're
understanding.
emotionally
Yeah.
attached.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
we talked, like he would share his feelings with me. So it
yeah,
wasn't like, we were like really best friends, but then we would be communicating in this like really cool way and he'd be describing what he was feeling. And then he would describe like, I don't know what's happening, Alison. All of a sudden I look at you and you seem like almost like an enemy. But then and then I
yeah.
don't know what to do. And then it goes away and then you're Alison again. And it's
Like
just like
perceived
this.
threat for a second, and
Yes.
yeah,
And he's like, and he felt scared. He was scaring the crap out of him. But
it's a
so listen,
terrifying feeling.
we
Yes.
totally have to wrap up. And this is like the worst
Okay.
part to wrap up in. But would you, I mean, I actually want to like get you back on the call in 2 hours from now because I just feel like it's so important that we talk. So would you come back on?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I just want to thank you so much for being here. And is there anything else that you just want to say to anyone out there?
No, I think, like I said, just to get the help, and if you treat things early and on a call by call basis, maybe you don't have to end up having as many struggles. It's never going to be easy, and it's always going to be difficult. Getting the help, it's going to be difficult to make that decision. But if you do, you'll be that much further ahead of the game,
Yeah, it's
I
true.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
I adore
It's been a
you.
pleasure. I
Okay.
adore you.
All
Thank you.
right. Bye, love.
Bye. Bye.